He'll trickle in.
Check, check. Okay, yes, we are live. Yes? Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya ya la 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 ya ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
Shana Tova, take two. We are slowly gathering here in the sanctuary, and many of you are joining us online, and we welcome you back for our second day service. Second day at Ramat Shalom is always something a little bit different. We've done projects, we've done discussions, we have some visitors who are joining us today via technology to continue the discussion we began yesterday, but in a very practical kind of way. But as we work up to that in our Torah reading, I invite you to turn in the Machzor, if you're in the sanctuary, to 161. Just a reminder, if you are online, if you didn't join us yesterday, if you click on the upper right-hand side of our website, ramatshalom.org, under Sidor, which is the normal prayer book, you will see the High Holiday Prayer Book, the Machzor. And that link will also be posted in the chat and on Facebook as well. We're on 161 for the blessings of the morning.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu chei ha'olamim hama'avir shena me'enai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu chei ha'olamim hanoten lasech vivina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu chei ha'olamim רוקה הארץ על המים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים פוקח עברים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים מלביש ערומים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים מתיר אסורים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים זוקף כפופים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים המכין מצעדי גבר.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים שעשה לי כל צורכי.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים שעשני בצלמו.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים שעשני בת חורין.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים שעשני ישראל.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו חי העולמים הנותן ליעף כוח.
Amen. Another day to be grateful for. Beginning this year, we turn together to 262, Psalm 150, the great Hallelujah psalm. And of course, hallelujah means we give thanks to Yah, to God.
Hallelujah, 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 El Picocho. Hallelujah, 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 V'teka shofar, hallelujah, v'nevel v'chinor, hallelujah, v'tov machor, hallelujah.
Hopefully a little bit more spiritually warmed up than we were before. We rise together, if you can, 276 for the Chatzi Kaddish, 276.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Hirutei, Be'amlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, U'v'yomechon, U'v'aledecho Beit Yisrael, Bagala, U'v'zman Karev, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach, Le'olam u'lamei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, Shemei dekutsha berichu, Le'elah, Le'elah, Min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran
278, the opening blessing of Rosh HaShanah morning, day 2, the Baruch Hu. We remain standing if you can.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamivorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
All be seated. We turn together now to 304, to the oldest of our prayers. That prayer, as we always say, is there to remind us to stop and pay attention, to go beyond the noise, to listen with spiritual ears, with spiritual hearts, with a spiritual soul, and pay attention to the beauty that is the Shema 304.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha Veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam beshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'ayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
We continue celebrating our crossing into this new year, this new adventure, this new journey. 318, we sing the words of crossing and celebrating together, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora teilot osei felech. Shira chadasha, shibchu geulim, L'shimcha al sfat hayam, yachad kulam odu v'imlichu ve'amru, Adonai imloch leolam vaed. Sur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uftechnu mecha Yuda ve'Yisrael, go aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch Ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. 323 and 324. We rise together now for the Amidah.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avoteinu V'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel veLeah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'imot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava. Misod hachayim unvonim umilemed da'at mivinim, Eftecha fi bitfala uvtachanunim, lechalot ulchanen, Pnei melech malchei hamlachim, v'adonei adonim.
328.
Zochreinu lechayim, Melech hafetz b'chayim, v'chodveinu b'sefer hachayim, lemancha Elohim chayim. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch Atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah.
Amen. 330.
Atah Gibor leolam Adonai, Rav lehoshia morid hatal, Mechal kel chayim bechesed, Mechaye kol chay berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato li shenei afar, Mi chamocha bal gevuro דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אהב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לחיות כל חי. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי כל חי.
347, 348, that challenging prayer we call Unatana Tokef. I will point out that in the Hebrew, it talks about the fact that while we say God inscribes our name in the book of life, it's our own actions, it's our own deeds, it's our own words that actually create the signature, our unique signature and imprint in that book of life. And so this prayer is a reminder to live our best lives and ensure that in doing so, we write our names ourselves in that Sefer Chaim.
ונתן תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובו תנשא מלכותך ויקום בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת.
349, on Rosh HaShanah, all is written and revealed, and on Yom Kippur, the course of every life is sealed. We're going to read a couple of these lines together. Feel free to wrestle with them with me, read them with me if you choose. How many pass on? How many shall thrive? Who shall live on and who shall die? Whose death is timely and whose is not? Who dies by fire and who shall be drowned? Who by the sword and who by the beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? The Rosh HaShanah.
Rosh HaShanah Yikatevun Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Yikatevun Rosh HaShanah Yikatevun Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Yikatevun.
As I read the paper this morning, I saw the huge earthquake in Mexico, and I read about the last Jew who somehow, some way made it out of Afghanistan. We're going to read together as we think about the fact that just some things amaze us and some things make our hearts heavy. And so many things are just beyond our control, and we need to work on embracing that and again living our life to the fullest. Read with me. Who by an earthquake, who by a plague, who shall be strangled and who shall be stoned, who dwells in peace and who is uprooted, who shall live safely and who shall be harmed, whose life is tranquil and whose is tormented, who shall be rich and who shall be poor, who shall be humbled and who is raised up. The Rosh HaShanah.
Rosh HaShanah
tevun Uv'yom som kippur Uv'yom som kippur Yechatevun Berosh HaShanah Yikatevun Uv'yom som kippur Uv'yom som kippur A reminder as we just read those words that some of the richest people I know, they have no physical possessions or very few. And sadly, some of the poorest people I know are the people who have just about everything they could ever want. As we turn to 352, we say the words that remind us what really matters. Tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah, personal growth, spiritual connection, and a giving back. Those are the things that make us wealthy.
Uteshuva, utefila, utzedaka, mavirin et roha hagezera.
As we stand together here in the sanctuary, or spiritually stand, as we connect with so many of you online, one of the things I miss the most about our high holidays is the ability to wrap our arms around each other at this moment where we do the priestly blessing. But I am asked if you've been here with us for that, as we say the priestly blessing on page 378, that you just close your eyes and remember years past. And you imagine that maybe next year we'll be doing it again. What we used to do and what we will do again is wrap our talis around the people next to us. If you're here with people that you're comfortable with and you want to do that, but if not, we spiritually connect with each other as we bless ourselves, both here in the sanctuary and online. The priestly blessing, 378.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav Eilecha v'chunecha Yisa Adonai panav eilecha ve'yasem lecha shalom ve'yasem lecha shalom.
Seated. Just like yesterday, we pray for peace as a reminder of our obligation to do our part to bring about peace. 380, Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, v'rachamim. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha.
382, the bottom of the page there, just reinforcement of our need, our craving to play a role in healing the world, and bringing peace. Oseh Shalom.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, Yal kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, Yal kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We get now to what I call the meat and potatoes of Rosh HaShanah. We can say that because it's not Yom Kippur, so it doesn't make anybody hungry. But the heart, which is the Torah service, and while it's not really part of the Torah service, to me it leads into the Torah service, and that is Avinu Malkeinu, which we can find on 453 and 454. We'll rise together as we open up the ark, reading together, as we did yesterday, the words on 453 together. We rise together. Our Creator, our Sovereign, remember us, though we are made of dust. Our Creator, our Sovereign, be merciful to us and to all of our offspring. Our Creator, our Sovereign, act in memory of all those who have been killed while honoring your name. Our Creator, our Sovereign, act in honor of your great and mighty, awe-inspiring name, which has been called out over us for our protection. Our Creator, our Sovereign, be gracious with us and respond to us, for we have no deeds to justify us. Deal with us in righteousness and love, and save us now.
Avinu Malkeinu Malkeinu, Konenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim.
We go right into our Torah service 464. If you can, we remain standing. If you're at home wondering, what should I do? The good news is we can't see you, but whatever works for you, and it's fine. 464.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim, Heitiv avertzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim.
466. We continue.
Vayehi ben Soah Haaron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ve'afutzu oivecha, ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, le'devar Adonai mi Yerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedusha
So 468.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon va'fesha, V'chata'a v'nahakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'chanun, Erech Apayim, V'rav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon va'fesha, V'chata'am v'nakeh.
Turn together to 470.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki cho b'shamayim uvaretz ki cho b'shamayim uvaretz Lecha Adonai hamamlacha V'amid na'aseh lechol erosh.
We can all be seated as the Torah comes to a rest. Some folks will be joining us for the Aliyah and or the Torah reading today. Did we sign Aliyot this morning?
No.
It's kind of open.
Yeah,
so.
you usually do like
Yeah, I know.
groups.
So normally we do groups, but I'm going to do it this way just because of COVID. If somebody wants to take the Aliyah here in the sanctuary, we're going to just do one person. So if you would like, we need 3 Aliyot. I'll leave it to you. You can clamor and fight your way on up here. That's a good thing. You want to come on up for the first? Perfect. We are reading a page 504. You can find the Torah reading. We're reading the continuation of yesterday's story. Ishmael is sent off, and now there's the solidification of the choice that Abraham made, which was choosing Isaac as his primary son. And then there's this ritual that we've talked about for so many years, a ritual that troubles us and challenges us, where Abraham takes Isaac to the top of this mountain and almost offers him as a sacrifice until the angel of God intervenes. And instead, a ram is sacrificed, and that's one of the reasons that we blow the shofar on this day. Last year, we looked at artistic interpretations about the Akedah. For centuries, we've been struggling with this story. What we're going to use it to... What are you doing? Today, what we're going to be looking at is what goes on after this story. So Abraham and Isaac have this moment at top of Mount Sinai, and then they kind of go their ways, separate ways, and we never see them. And many argue that's because of perhaps the trauma that took place at the top of this mountain. And then the next story, Sarah dies. Some argue, again, from the trauma associated from this story. And then we read a little bit about Abraham's life, and then he dies. And then Ishmael and Isaac come back together to bury their father. We'll talk more, but let's read a little bit. Amy Freund is reading live on Zoom, is my understanding. So she's going to be popping on up, and we are ready to pull her up as our wonderful Aliyah is said. You can go up, go close to the mic. Whoa, not yet. Hold on 1 second. Eddie, not yet. There you go. Hold on. We're going to have somebody say something on the mic right here, and then Amy will join us.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ele Elohim nisa et Avraham Vayomer elav Avraham Vayomer hineni Vayomer kach et bincha et yechidecha asher ahavta et Yitzchak v'lech lecha el eretz hamoriyah v'ha'alehu sham leolah al achad harim asher omar elecha vayashkem Avraham baboker vayachavo shel chamoro vayikach et shnei ne'arav ito ve'et Yitzchak beno vayivaka atzei olav vayakom vayelech El hamakom asher amar lo ha'Elohim.
Yasher koach.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'Chayei Olam Nata Betochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Thank you to both of you. Amy, thank you for doing this from home. And thank you to our wonderful Maya for taking this aliyah. And if somebody else would like to take an aliyah, we invite you to join us up here. If you're more comfortable doing it where you are seated, feel free. Any takers? I'll take it. Very rarely get the opportunity to do this. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Not yet. Wait.
Not yet. I've got to do the aliyah. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kervanu Lavodato V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Eddie, we're ready. Is this Cindy's?
I think this is Cindy's.
Wait, no, Cindy's going to read right now.
Sorry, yeah, that's what
Cindy,
I
you're
thought
up.
that's why I was moving out of the way, yeah.
No, don't be nervous.
Cindy Neveloff here in the
What do you start with,
sanctuary. Our
Vayomer
poor
Avraham?
tech team has recordings and real people and live people and Zoom people.
Hold on. What is it? Start.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. You got it?
Yes.
Okay.
I hope.
You're good to go.
Bayom Hishlishi Vayasa Abraham et Enav Vayar et Hamakom Mirakom Vayomer Abraham El Arav Shavu Lechem Pur Im Hachamor Vihani Vihanar Leko Adko Unushuva Alechem Vayacha Abraham El Arav Shavu
Vayasem.
Vayosem El Yitzchak Beno, Vayakach Beno et Haeshet Hamechelech B'chol Shnehem Yachdad. Vayomer Yitzchak El Abraham Avi, Vayomer Avi, Vayomer Hine Bini, Vayomer Hine Ha'etz V'ha'yatzim V'ha'azeh Le'olam. Vayomer Abraham Elohim Elohazeh Le'olam b'nei Yitz v'chol shnehem yachdad.
Yasher koach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Anybody else want an aliyah?
Daniel? Come on. Look, Dan's going to do it. You want to do it too? Come up, Skip. You can both.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Amarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Karvanu Levado Tov V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
And Anita is going to be joining us two places on the screen right now for her Torah reading.
Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo haElohim vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach vaya'aroch et ha'elzim vayakal et haitzak beno vayasem oto al hamizbeach mimal la'etzim vayishlach Avraham et yado vayikach et hamazlachelet lishchot et beno vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim vayomer Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hanar v'al ta'aslo me'uma ki ata
Yadati Ki Yireh Elohim Ata V'lo Haskaravta Et Benora Et Yadaecha Mimeni Vayishlaham Et Anav Vayar Yinekayil Achar Ne'echaz Basvach Bikyarnav V'yelech Abraham V'yikach El Elil V'yalohu Leolah Tachat Beno Vayikra Abraham Shem Hamakom Ahu Adonai Yireh Asher Yamer Hayom Behar Adonai Yireh. Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei natan b'tochenu baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Shekoach, thank you for taking the aliyot and for the Torah reading. To our folks who did that, we want to take this opportunity while the Torah is out to say a Misha Berach, a prayer of healing, a prayer of strength for family, for friends, for our country, for the nation of Israel. Want to keep in our hearts and prayers this morning Lily Stander, Wally Sif, Bonnie Augen, Larry Sif, Amy Perlman, Sharon Zant, Elliot Kazteen, Ruthie Reines, Tootie Music, and many, many others. Feel free, please, to say any names out loud here in the sanctuary if you choose. Online, feel free to type away. We do see those names, and we hold them in our hearts as we say this prayer together.
Mishebeirach avoteinu mekor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishebeirach imoteinu mekor habracha leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So I chatted with a fair number of you about our discussion, or the beginning of what I hope will be a discussion over this year, about the optimism that I surprisingly left Israel with, and many people were were unaware that there were actually people working on the ground to build the Jewish state and to build those bridges. And as it happened, as I was boarding my flight home, Richard Goldman sent me a wonderful article about an organization doing some incredible work. I'm not going to say too much because I tend to do that and then I ruin what we're about to learn. But Richard is on the board of the Arava Institute, which we will learn about in just a little bit. But I want to make a clarification because one person said to me that they were confused because they thought that I was in favor of a two-state solution. And 100% I am. And they said, well, you were talking about a shared society, so I was assuming you were talking about one state. And I said, no, not at all. I said, the reality on the ground, and statistics just came out, I think it was earlier this week or late last week, that show us that there are 6.93 million Jews in Israel as we begin this new year. Okay? There are 9.5 million people living in the state of Israel. So you can do the math and you can see that Israel, and we always praise Israel for this, those of us in the pro-Israel camp, for the diversity within Israel. Diversity that, like here in America, has its challenges, but Israel is, and if I have any say, will always be a Jewish state, but I also hope that Israel will also have other people living within her boundaries and her borders, her secure borders. And in order for that to happen, and in order for so many of us to be proud of this diversity, we have to make certain that there are people who are working very hard to build a shared society among the Jews who call Israel home and the people who aren't Jewish who choose to make Israel their home. That being said, as a clarification, I invite you to turn your attention to the video monitors. This had to be pre-recorded. Miriam, who you'll meet, is an Orthodox Jew and obviously could not join us today. Tarek had, who you'll meet today, had another engagement. He is in Israel. You will meet him. But after the video, we will be joined live from the holy city of Boston. At least in my house, it's a holy city, by David Lehrer, who I'll introduce in a little bit, but he is on Zoom with us already. But now I direct your attentions to the Zoom screens as we meet these two wonderful people and unfortunately hear a little bit more from me. Differently. But in a minute, you'll get to meet these two wonderful people who represent an organization that is near and dear to one of our members in our community, Richard Goldman, and he has really shared it with me, and I am grateful for that. And I am so excited to share what they do and these two incredible people with you today. You will see on the screen Miriam May, who is the CEO of the Friends of the Arava Institute. She most recently served as the Director of Institutional Advancement at Harvard Hillel, and previously she served as the founding Managing Director of the Advanced Leadership Initiative at Harvard University, and as the Executive Director at the Susan G. Komen Foundation of Massachusetts. Miriam founded SMART Consulting in 1994, and for 10 years provided marketing and outreach consulting to a wide range of nonprofits and financial institutions, including Fleet Bank, Deutsche Bank, Hadassah, United Way of America, Oxfam America, and others. In Rhode Island, she was the Senior Vice President of United Way of Southeastern New England. Previously, she lived in New York City and was a Vice President at Citibank. Miriam was also a principal consultant with Charter Associates, a World Bank consultant to the Ministry of Labor of Brazil, and area advisor for Latin America and the Caribbean for the U.S. Department of Labor. She has an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a BS in Labor Relations and Organizational Behavior from Cornell University. She is married to Rabbi, Dr., Professor Shia Cohen, and they have 4 children. And Miriam, it is an honor to have you with us today and take part in this discussion, and also introduce your wonderful colleague who is joining us as well.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Andrew. It is great to be here with you in advance of Rosh HaShanah, and I hope you all have had a meaningful and festive first day of Rosh Hashanah and are enjoying this second day. I am delighted to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Tarek Abu Hamed. Tarek and I have been associated with each other for 5 years since I joined the Institute, but his affiliation goes back much longer. Tarek grew up in Subacher, a village of Greater East Jerusalem, of Greater Jerusalem, and got his undergraduate and graduate degrees in Turkey in chemical engineering. He has a PhD in chemical engineering, went on to do 2 postdocs, one at the University of Minnesota and one at the Weizmann Institute. He then came to the Arava Institute in 2008 to form our renewable energy program. He was with us for 5 years, living on kibbutz with his family, making him an unusual Arab American, Arab Israeli, and then left in 2013 for a stint as the deputy chief scientist for the state of Israel, making him at the time the highest ranking Palestinian in the Israeli government, and also as acting chief scientist. While he was there, because he didn't have enough degrees, he added a master's at Hebrew University in public administration. And then he came back to us as our, both as the head of renewable energy and as our academic director. Ergo, it's going to take 2 people to replace him as he becomes our executive director, following David Lair's 20-year career in that position. And he has me beat because, along with living in 2 places, both on the kibbutz and at home in Subacher, he has 5 children.
Well, again, it is an honor to have.
Not a competition, though.
And I got 2. So I want to just frame things a little bit before I turn it over to the 2 of you to teach us about the Institute. And if technology serves us well today, we will also hear from David live on Rosh Hashanah day 2. So yesterday here in the sanctuary, we read about Hagar and Ishmael being banished. And we spoke about how this banishment was the beginning of what is now an ancient but still very active fault line, if you will, that continues to divide the Jewish and the Arab worlds, particularly in and around Israel. And this morning, we read the Akedah, the troubling ritual that seems to solidify in the Torah that Isaac is the chosen child and thus further separates the children of Abraham. We talked yesterday about my experience in Israel in June, specifically the opportunity to see that while the divide between Israeli Jews and Arabs and others is very real, there are very real attempts to bridge the divide, to create a shared, diverse, and peaceful society. If we were to keep reading the story in the Torah this morning, we would eventually learn that Isaac and Ishmael do reunite to bury their father. And Midrash suggests that this was not the first time that the brothers actually came together. There are ancient teachings that suggest that after Sarah's passing, Abraham married, of all people, Hagar, whose name is, according to our tradition, changed to Keturah. And it's interesting to point out that the Arava Institute is located where? On a kibbutz called Kibbutz Keturah, north of Eilat. So we have stories in our own tradition that attempt to shift the narrative away from the divide, But these stories don't get enough attention. As we begin this new Jewish year, Jews in Israel are beginning Shemitah, a year of release or sabbatical year that occurs every 7 years. And for traditional Jews, Shemitah requires that Jewish-owned land in Israel is left fallow. No crops are to be grown on the land as it's to be given time to rest. One important way that traditional Jews who observe Shemitah get through this year is by purchasing produce from Arab Palestinian farmers. Israel and Jordan just signed an agricultural agreement arranging for the Jewish state to import produce from Jordan this year. This agreement, the fact that some Jews turn to their Arab Palestinian brothers and sisters, are beautiful examples of the way we are bridging the divide. But this doesn't get the attention it deserves either. And from my point of view, neither does the work that the two of you are so committed to doing. The Arava Institute is bridging the divide in incredible ways and literally doing so by healing the earth. The Institute embodies in many respects the lessons of Shemitah and is proof that there is another narrative out there, one that brings the children of Abraham together in constructive ways on a kibbutz, perhaps named after Hagar. You both represent an organization that I so desperately want my community to know about and be empowered to share with folks in South Florida and across the country. So perhaps we can begin, and I open this up to the two of you in any way that you find meaningful, but by telling us more about your work and how you're healing the environment, and in doing so, healing a people.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Andrew, and I really wish you all Shana Tova, full of love and health for you and your families. I would like to start actually with Ishmael and Ishaq. I think the message from their story is to focus on things that bring us together, things that unite us. And this is what we do at the Arava Institute. We focus on things that we need in this region, on the challenges that both Muslims, Jewish, Christians, everyone who live in this region that is in need of these things. And this region really suffers from many environmental challenges on water, on lack of traditional energy sources. And we want to use actually these challenges as an opportunity to bring people together, to use the environment, to use the academics, to use the research as a diplomacy tool to connect between people, to unite them, to help them focus on the mutual interest, which is interest for everyone in the region. When we talk about water in this region, we share most of the water resources, the Jordan River, most of the aquifers, the coastal aquifer is shared between Israel and Gaza. The mountain aquifer is shared between the West Bank and Israel. The Arava aquifers are shared between Jordan and Israel. When we talk about the energy sources or the energy water exchange, this region has a huge potential. And when we talk about the Shemitah, and actually this is one of the, I can say the most important things I learned from the Jewish culture, the Shabbat and the sabbatical and the Shemitah, where you have to have time to rest. That means to store energy to start the week, or to have Shemitah to let the land rest. If we don't do that, the land will claim its own Shemitah of sorts of climate change, natural disasters, and this will prevent us from continuing to enjoy the earth's bounty. While maybe the laws of Shemitah may seem very foreign to those who are not Jewish or those who don't live in Israel, the lessons it teaches is to safeguard and protect the land, lest our overuse of its resources force us actually into a situation where we no longer have the option of protecting the land. And this is, the Shemitah also teaches us how to actually plan our life in a very strategic way, that you know that in a certain year that you will not have a produce. That means you have to treat the land in a way that you will produce the need of the year of the Shemitah. You have to store things, you have to produce more, you have to use it efficiently. And this teaches us how we need actually to treat each other or treat the land in a way that it will last forever, not only for us, also for the next generation. So strategic thinking, the use of the resources in a very efficient way. This is a major lesson that we learn from the Shemitah. Protecting the land also means protecting the neighbors. And in order to do that, in order to protect your neighbor, in order to build trust with your neighbor, which is the most important resource that we lack in our region, you have to come together with your enemies, with your partners, with your neighbors, and without coming together, you cannot build this trust. And that's what we do at the Arava Institute. We bring students together. Our student body is 1/3 Jewish students, Israelis, 1/3 internationals, and 1/3 Arab students from Jordan, Israeli Arabs from West Bank and Gaza. So through our academic program and our research programs, we bring people together and we build the trust.
I want to clarify, Tarek, you are in Israel as you're speaking to us today.
Yes.
And Miriam, you are in the New England area.
Right, I'm in the Boston suburbs.
And when I was in Israel in June, you know, we went to the Gaza envelope, and the border was the border, not to be crossed. You know, even though it you know, you can see it cross. But what I was fascinated by when I got on the plane to fly home, that's when Richard Goldman, who many people know in our community, and of course the two of you know, sent me the article about the work that you are doing, that it just highlighted in many respects what I experienced in Israel, that you are somehow crossing that border. And so I don't know if you can speak a little bit about that, because I think it will surprise a lot of people listening today that this type of work is going on. And it's so important for people to understand it.
And I would say, I want Tarek to speak to it, but I will say, it's not magic, it's hard work, and it's years and years of building trust and relationships. If you do not have those fundamental relationships with people on the ground and trust with also the civil administration and the Israel Defense Forces, as well as the trust of Palestinian partners, this doesn't happen. Tarek, tell them about this.
Wonderful. This is actually a result of like 25 years of work, as Miriam mentioned. We believe at the Arava Institute that nature knows no borders, and nature is stronger than any one of us. We work with our Palestinian partners not only on scientific or academic fairs. We do research with them. We do projects on the ground in the West Bank and also in Gaza. We have our partners in Gaza, Palestinian partners, and as Miriam said, we do that in coordination with the civil administration and the Israeli army. We managed in the last few years to introduce to Gaza a system that generates water from the air. It harvests actually the humidity in the air and produces drinking water. It's an Israeli technology. It's a company called called WaterGen. And we managed, as I said, to introduce two systems. One of them is installed in the second largest hospital in Gaza. It's called Nasser Hospital. And the other one is in Abasan area. And during actually the last war between Israel and Gaza, we asked our partners in Gaza to send us photos or to give us reports about these systems. And they said because of the war, the roads are blocked and it's not safe. And immediately on Shabbat morning, they sent us photos of these systems. And actually, because the infrastructure was damaged, these two systems were the only systems that were generating drinking water for the communities. And that was a very good exposure of these technologies to the rest of the neighborhoods in Gaza. And immediately on Sunday or Monday morning, we got 5 requests from 5 different municipalities in Gaza, including the largest hospital in Gaza, Ashifa. They asked for such systems. And it's really important to mention, when they did the opening ceremony for one of these systems, they mentioned the Israeli Arava Institute is our partner on this project. This is, I think, the first time it happens in Gaza that the Gaza organization pronounces such a partnership with an Israeli institution. They did that because they know that the agenda of the Arava Institute is not only to build bridges or it's the peace. We do it because our agenda is the environment. We do this because it's good for the people on both sides. Besides Gaza, we have also projects in the West Bank for off-grid wastewater treatment technologies. It's not a technology that we produce or we buy and send it to Gaza. No, it has the whole envelope of sustainable managing of projects, social impacts, training people to run, to maintain, to design these systems. We managed to bring Gazans to the Arava Institute to train them how to design, install solar systems, because these systems are off-grid. They don't need to be connected to the grid. They have solar systems that they run it. We're also now trying to build a 5 megawatt solar field in Gaza. Electricity in Gaza is one of the major challenges for Gazan people. They have like few hours a day of electricity. Other system, also a large wastewater treatment plant, also off-grid, that will treat the wastewater of thousands of houses in Gaza. And the wastewater is a huge challenge. It's a major challenge for Gazans in Gaza, because the untreated wastewater goes into the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean is shared between Gaza and Israel.
And additionally, those folks in the Gaza envelope are reaching out to us because they know we're the only people working in this way about enhancing these things, because not only do they get so much of the violent outcome, they also get wastewater. There's all this use of batteries to store power, and then the batteries become really toxic waste. There's problems that are small get writ large when the parties are not speaking to each other.
And you make a point that I wanted to ask, and I know for some people listening, a lot of this is very new, and it's shaking up their preconceived ideas about what's going on in Israel. By the way, the Gaza envelope, just as a reminder to folks, that's the land in Israel around Gaza. One of the things that I learned and I shared with folks yesterday in meeting with some Palestinian Israelis in Israel, that the plea was that for those who are committed in the Jewish community to peace, how important it is for us to help empower and strengthen the Palestinian community that is determined to bring about peace. And so when you talk about helping in the West Bank and in Gaza, and the idea that that helps the folks in the Gaza envelope, I just, your thoughts on how your work is strengthening Israel too. Any thoughts or reflections just on that?
I think there's two sides to that, just to frame it. One is the work we do for off-grid communities and people who live in Israel who are Bedouin, who are Palestinian, who are Israeli, who become educated and learn with us. I think an interesting part of that is their ability to know the other. A lot of we had a conference a couple of years ago hosted by now member of Knesset, but also our founder, Alon Tal, and that brought together the Irish on the 20th anniversary of the Good Friday Accords. And they had two messages for us that I think really stuck with me. One is, don't say we made peace. We make peace every day. And the other one was that by the time they signed the Good Friday Accords, there were over 1,000 civil organizations working on a cross-border basis. In Israel, there are maybe 150, and we are the oldest and most intense of those organizations because we bring people and our students, going back to Ishmael and Isaac, the Quran has a very different narrative of this than the Hebrew Bible. And the reason, and so do our students, they have very different narratives of what happened and whose land this is and all those things. And we teach them about the environment together because that's a shared resource. We also have something called the Peace Building and Leadership Seminar, where they have to talk about what they don't want to talk about. They have to talk about the situation. They have to talk about gender rights. They have to talk about religious freedom. They have to talk about freedom, voting, all the things that, no society has it perfect, including our own. And so it is a real challenge, but what they come away with is friendship. I had the opportunity to tour with two of our alumni, Odilia Mater and Mohammed Azra in the United States. And two things they said stuck with me. One was, one of the things we do on this Peace Building and Leadership Seminar is we tour. We go and see destroyed Arab villages, and we go to Yad Vashem. Neither of those things are ignored. Yad Vashem being the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. And Odilia was touring with one of our Gazan students, and she could tell it was just going by too fast for him. So she said, you know what? I was a tour guide when I was with the Israeli army. I was a history teacher for the Israeli army. Let me take you. She took him through, and at the end he said, I knew about 6 million of your people had died, but now I understand why you needed a country. Now, for a Gazan to say that after a few weeks or months at the Institute, what a sea change in understanding. And then Mohammed, one of the rules I have when they come to America is when people ask you about BDS, say, I'm here to talk about peace and the environment. Partially that's to protect our Arab students, because if they say, I'm opposed, they're in trouble. They say they're for, they're in trouble with me. So we want to avoid trouble. So someone asked him this question in a room with 250 people in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he said, you can't be in dialogue with people you're not speaking to. And I think that crystallizes our message. And Rabbi, we look forward, hopefully, to the opportunity to bring a couple of alumni to your community, to meet with your people, maybe even in Human, and also your young people, who I think will find our alumni, of which there are something like 1,600 in the world doing good work and knowing the other across both in North America and across the Middle East, of course.
And we are planning, we were going to do it today, but with COVID numbers, we changed it, but we are planning, hopefully in person, something in November as we continue to build a relationship with the wonderful work that you do. As we slowly bring our conversation, which we could talk for hours, and again, this is not the end of our discussion. We'll continue this over hopefully years. But Miriam, when I spoke with you earlier, one of the things that was fascinating for me is, and we see it in our own community down here in South Florida, many Jews who are part of the younger generation are feeling confused by what's going on in Israel. And we can understand that. And I know even on the Israeli street, there are many young Israelis who are frustrated and disillusioned by what's happening. But you seem to have an interesting recipe going on by dealing with the environment. And I love, Tarek, how you said that the environment doesn't know boundaries. Do you find that this is helping to engage people who otherwise might be sitting on the sidelines when it comes to this, unfortunately, hot button issue?
Our young people are totally engaged around the environment, and most of them are totally unengaged around Israel. We grew up with a sense of Israel as a Jew in these United States that held it as a sacred trust, shall we say. I don't think they see that at all. They have a much more nuanced, is the nicest word I can think of, view of Israel. And as a result, having the environment, having an organization that works across borders, having an organization that brings people together around the issue they do really care about, which is the environment, which is their own future in this world, I think really brings them together. And as a result, first of all, we welcome students. Secondly, we are beginning a next-gen council here at the Friends of Arava to bring folks who are interested in promoting the work of the Arava Institute together. And we really see a future for ourselves and for our young people. And Tarek has other ideas of expanding our scope. I think, Tarek, maybe you want to talk to some of your interests, especially around shared society opportunities.
Indeed, this is actually one of the main areas that we want to focus on in Israel. We've been doing this work for 25 years, building trust between Israel and its neighbors. And we want to use that experience in building bridges within Israel itself, between the Israeli Jewish community and the Arab communities in Israel, on capacity building related to climate change issues, on research projects related to climate change, to environmental justice, climate justice. Not only when we say Israeli Arabs that live in the northern parts of Israel, also in the Bedouin communities, that they are in a huge need for capacity building and projects that will help them to cope with their daily challenges. It's actually an internal tikkun olam in the Israeli society. When we talk about coexistence within Israel, probably people took it as granted, and we did not express the importance of the coexistence, and that's what I think we kept ourselves silent. But I think we need to talk louder. We need to talk more about the importance of this coexistence within the country. Being silent, I think, encouraged the fanatics in both sides to do what they did during the violence. So it's our responsibility as individuals, and also as environmental organizations, to use our experience to heal what happened in Israel.
Those are beautiful. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Mears.
And we really welcome this opportunity to share our message with your community, because, louder, more often, more frequently, more publicly, that's what we're really focusing our energy on.
Well, I am so grateful for the time and the energy and the passion that you not only brought to this discussion, but to the work that you are doing here in Israel. We will continue to build a relationship. We hope to see some of your students down here in November, and we will create a bond and help strengthen what you do, because it's something that we are committed to as we begin this new year. I thank you both from the bottom of my heart, and wish you all good things. Stay safe in this world. Shalom, salam, all good things.
Shana Tova to you
Shana Tova.
and your community.
Thank you, everyone.
You all.
Bye. Thank these wonderful folks who joined us online. And I want to bring live onto our screen Dr. David Lehrer, who holds a doctorate from the Geography and Environmental Development Department of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and a joint master's degree in management science from Boston University and Ben-Gurion University. David was the executive director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies from 2001 until this past August, and has now become the director of international development. He's been a member of Kibbutz Ketorah, which we spoke about a little bit ago, since 1981, and he worked in agriculture and education, and he served as the general secretary and business manager, and twice served as an emissary for the Jewish Agency of Israel in the US. His research includes studies on the effectiveness of the ISO I-4001 environmental management system. David, you'll have to explain that. Sustainable development in the Dead Sea Basin, and the cost of nature conservation in Israel. He is currently on sabbatical, lecturing in Boston at the Boston University, and it's an honor to have him here. If you do have questions online, the questions are being monitored, and we'll take a few questions in here. But David, we invite you to share any thoughts, reflections you had. You weren't able to be part of that discussion, so you might just tear it to shreds right now. So.
Thank you. First of all, do you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Rabbi Jacobs, and to thank the Ramat Shalom congregation for inviting me into your Rosh HaShanah services. Shana Tova to everybody. It's really an honor to be a part of this. In truth, I think that Miriam and Tarek did a fantastic job covering the work of the Arava Institute. I'll just add a little bit of a personal story, just my involvement. As I'm right now in Boston, but I live permanently on Kibbutz Ketorah. And as you can tell by the heavy Israeli accent, I wasn't born in Israel. I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in North Carolina, and in high school, I was very involved with a youth movement called Young Judea, the youth movement of Hadassah at the time. In 1973, when I was in just before my last year of high school, I went to Israel for the first time. I volunteered on a kibbutz in the summer of 1973. I fell in love with Israel. I fell in love with kibbutz. I said, this is what I want to do with my life. And 5 years later, I moved back to Israel with a group of people from Young Judea to Kibbutz Ketorah, which is both my home and the home of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies. As a kibbutznik, you get to do a lot of things in your life. In your career, I worked in education, I worked in agriculture until they realized what a terrible farmer I was, and then they said, we've got to get you out of here, so they moved me up to management, and I was the general secretary and the business manager. I did 2 stints as an emissary for the Jewish Agency, really it's been my privilege and honor for the last 20 years since 2001 to be the executive director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, which really brought together my 2 great passions, my passion for peace and reconciliation between peoples in our region, and my belief in the environment, that we must protect the environment. And so at the Arava Institute, we try to advance cross-border environmental cooperation in the face of political conflict. Because as Tarek said, nature knows no borders, and all of our resources, air, water, ecosystems, are all shared resources, and the only way to protect them is to work together with our Palestinian and Jordanian and partners from the region.
Thank you. So we have the opportunity, if anybody has any questions, either online or in person, to ask a couple questions. This is part of what makes our Rosh Hashanah Day 2 a little unique. It's a little bit interactive. We have a small group in the sanctuary, so if anybody has any questions, we've got a microphone for you here. So, Richard?
David, Shana Tova.
He can't see you, so tell him who you are. So if he knows you, tell him.
Huh?
He can't see you, so you might just want to tell him who you are because he probably knows you.
David, Shana Tova. I've been sharing the work of Arava, as Rabbi Jacobs has said.
That's Richard Goldman speaking, just so you know.
I couldn't miss that. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
David, I have a political question.
Sure.
With the work that Arava has done in Gaza, for example, what support have you Arava, received from the past governments and the current government on the efforts that you're doing in Gaza?
So it's been a very interesting process. With the previous government, we did not have too much direct relations with the ministries, but we have a direct relationship with the civil administration, which is the part of the Israeli army which oversees both the West Bank and Gaza. And we speak to the head of the civil administration on a regular basis about the work that we've been doing. And they have been phenomenally supportive of the work that we do. The Israeli army understands that the best way to create stability in our region is by working to improve people's lives, especially in Gaza, where 95% of the water is undrinkable, where there's only enough electricity for 3 and 4 hours a day, where there is an enormous amount of wastewater of sewage that gets poured out into the Mediterranean Sea and then washes up on their shores, washes up on our shores. So it is clearly in Israel's interest that we work to improve the lives of both Palestinians in the West Bank and Palestinians in Gaza. And we've received tremendous support from the Israeli army, from the civil administration on all of the projects that we've done.
I have one more question while I have the mic. David, we have a number of college students from all over the world who spend a semester or a year at the Arava Institute at your kibbutz, in a beautiful part of the Negev Desert. Many of the people in our congregation have children or grandchildren who are in college. What are the steps if a student is interested in spending a semester or a year with Arava for them to become involved?
It's really not too complicated. Students, if you're a student currently in college, or even if you finish college, you can simply go online to our website. It's very easy to find. It's at www.arava.org. And you'll be able to find the academic department and can apply for coming to the Arava Institute online. We are a Masa program, so there are Masa scholarships available that cover part of the costs. If you're a current student in a university undergraduate, in most cases, U.S. Universities will allow students to take their semester abroad at the Arava Institute and give them at least partial, if not full credit for a semester.
I have a couple questions coming in from many folks who are joining us online. And I'm negligent because I should have explained this, but David, I'm going to toss it to you. What does Arava mean, and why was it chosen as the name of the organization?
So Arava basically is the valley. It's the name of the valley that's a shared valley between Israel and Jordan. It's the valley that goes between the Dead Sea and the Red Sea. And that's where Kibbutz Keturah is located, sort of in the middle of that valley, along with 10 other kibbutzim and a number of villages on the Jordanian side. We simply chose it because it is the physical location of the Institute. However, it also happens that the word Arava or Araba in Arabic actually means to mix. Sort of coincidental, but that's what it means.
Great. Does the Institute engage in any wildlife monitoring as part of its environmental efforts?
Yes, we actually do. We have a Center for Arid Land Conservation that has done a number of ecological studies. In fact, there's a spider, the Arava spider, that was discovered by our students and has been named the Arava spider because it is endemic. It's only found in our region. But a big part of our conservation work actually is not around animals as much as it's around trees. The acacia tree is a keystone species in the Arava. Keystone species means it's a species that all other species basically depend on. So the acacia tree, which is native to our region, provides food and habitat for lots of animals, including gazelles, including insects, lizards, different types of rodents. So that's the really important species that we monitor. That's where we do most of our work.
Shana Tova, David. My name is Debbie. I'm the cantor here. I was wondering, is it difficult for you to find students from Gaza? Like, is it risky for Gazans to, get involved with this work in cooperation with Israel?
Like everything else in our part of the world, crossing borders is complicated. And it's not so simple. When we started the Institute in 1996, the idea was to bring Jews and Arabs together, Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, and we were successful in doing so. And we even had, at that time, Palestinians from Gaza. In 2000, the second Intifada began, and it became very difficult, in fact, to bring in Palestinians from the West Bank and from Gaza. The Israeli army had a ban on students from the West Bank or from Gaza coming to Israel to study. In 2000, and that ban held for quite a while. But in 2007, we went to the Supreme Court and sort of sued the Defense Force, the Israeli Defense Force, on their policy of not allowing Palestinians to study in Israel, and we won that case. And so we were for many years until today able to bring in students from the West Bank. We still were not able to bring in students from Gaza until just a few years ago, in part due to the encouragement that the Israeli army wanted to give to the work of the Arava Institute because they see it so important that they began to also grant permits for Gazans. It is, however, very risky for the Gazans to come to Israel and study. We do know that that when they are at the institute, they often get called by the Palestinian intelligence services and are asked what they're doing there. But as far as we know, Palestinians who have studied with us and gone back to Gaza have been unharmed. They're safe. One of them now works for us in our projects in Gaza, and two of them actually have gone on to Ben Gurion University to get advanced degrees.
Thank you, and I know that we've spoken, Rachel in Boston, Rachel Calico, we've been working on bringing some students here perhaps in November and having some opportunity to learn and engage with them. David, I can't thank you enough for joining us on Rosh HaShanah Day 2. Mr. Goldman, Dr. Goldman seems to have one more question. Can't let it go, right?
David, I learned about the Arava Institute through the fundraising bicycle ride that you have from Jerusalem to Eilat. And at the end of March, number 2, Arava Institute has organized a tour of Jordan that has some very interesting political and social implications. Can you briefly give a background on the bike ride for any bike riders that we may have in the congregation, and also the bus tour through Jordan and the West Bank that I'm going to be participating in this spring?
Right. Thank you, Richard. And again, thank you, Rabbi Jacobs and Richard, and thank you to the congregation for having me. The Institute offers actually 2 opportunities for people who don't want to spend a semester studying at the Arava Institute to come visit the Arava Institute. One is the Israel Ride, which Richard mentioned. For almost 20 years, the Arava Institute has brought people from mostly the United States, but other parts of the world as well, to Israel to do a 5-day bike ride from Jerusalem to Eilat with a Shabbat at Mitzpeh Ramon and a night at Kibbutz Keturah visiting the Arava Institute. It's a phenomenal experience. I've done it every ride since we started. We have between 100 and 200 people on the ride. It's just a fantastic experience and an amazing way to see Israel. There are 3 riding groups. There's a fast group of people who want to spend their time racing up and down hills. There's a medium group, which is the group I go in, which takes it a little bit easier and enjoys the scenery. And then there's another group that rides half day and does a tour half the day. The Israel Ride is a fundraiser, so of course there's a fundraising minimum, and you can find out all that information if you go on www.israelride.org, or I'm sure you can get the information from Richard. The second way to visit the Israel in a formal way is through the Beyond Borders tour, which we have. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that this year, because of COVID, we've had to cancel the ride, which was planned for the end of October. The next ride will be in 2022. Again, I don't know the dates exactly, but it's sometime at the end of October, beginning of November, 2022. The other way to come to Israel is through the Beyond Borders tour, which is held in March. And it is an opportunity to get to know our region by visiting Israel, Jordan, and Palestine in the West Bank. We spend time dividing our time between tourist sightseeing and interesting discussions with leaders, politicians, with some of our alumni, taking a look at some of the projects that the Arava Institute is doing in Jordan and in the West Bank, and spending also a night at Kibbutz Keturah, so you can see the Institute and meet the students.
David, thank you for joining us. You can find out more about the Institute at www.arava.org. And as a community, we'll share more. And again, Shana Tova to you, to your family and friends, and from my wife, who's a Bostonian, take good care of Boston for her. And we hope to meet you in person one day soon.
Great.
Shana Tova. Thank
Shana
you.
Tova, thank you so much.
As we just wrap that up and move on with a song of joy and happiness, I want to stress two things that I really took away from my conversations with Miriam May and Tariq. I mean, if you didn't get, Tariq is a Palestinian Israeli, okay? He's one of the most prominent Palestinian Israelis. You heard that he served in the Israeli government. He's leading one of these major organizations now. That's huge. And Miriam couldn't stress enough to me, both online and even in our personal conversations, how supportive the IDF is of this work. And they feel that the work of the Arava Institute is invaluable to helping the IDF not have to do everything that we know that the IDF has to do on a regular basis. So those are two things to kind of mull over and think about as we process all that we've learned.
Are they involved at all with JNF? Do you know? It seems like they do a lot of stuff similar.
American JNF, because there's a split, yeah.
That's what I would think.
Okay. No.
Their competition.
Yeah,
Figures.
there's
Okay.
Jewish politics.
Got it. Okay.
So but you better learn more. I'll put the individual video up if you want to share it with folks. But thank you, Richard, and thank you all for learning and seeing this spark of light in the middle of the desert.
Really interesting.
So we're going to turn together and sing a little bit. 593 as the cantor gets ready to blow some shofar.
I'm nervous. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, Odeh halelucha selah. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, Odeh halelucha selah. Ashrei, ashrei, ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Ashrei, 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 yoshvei beitecha. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They will sing your praises forever. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They will sing your praises forever. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, Odeh halelucha selah. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, Odeh halelucha selah. Ashrei, ashrei, ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Ashrei, ashrei, ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They will sing your praises forever. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They will sing your praises forever.
As the cantor begins her journey outside, if you didn't join us yesterday, we were determined to do a live shofar blowing. We can't do that inside. They call the shofar the big COVID spreader. So cantor will be going outside. She's got quite the shoes to fill.
Well, yeah, there's no comparison. Okay, I'm the little league shofar blower, and Mark was the major league shofar blower.
But I'm going to bring
so
Rabbi
I'm going to do my
Cheryl
best,
on up
but
to
I don't want you to have any
table.
false expectations of what I can pull off here, because yesterday was unbelievable. So I'll do my best.
We're going to have
don't know.
Rabbi Cheryl do the calls, which you can find on 592. Cantor, when you get settled, just give us a shout out and though you can hear us. Can you hear us?
I can't hear.
You can't hear? You can't hear us?
I can't hear him.
You can't hear us?
How did Mark hear him? Oh, you're gonna have to hold it wide open, Beth, because otherwise I can't hear. Well, I must not have good hearing.
Uh-oh, Cantor.
Will you tell me what he says?
I think I need to move closer to the door so the Cantor can hear me.
But she's not going to hear the calls.
Just stay very
can't
close
hear.
into the microphone.
Nope.
Talk, Cheryl, talk into the microphone.
I'm going to, maybe you can come, if you're gonna do the calls, maybe you can come stand near the door so I can
Cheryl,
actually
stand
hear
with
your
the door.
live voice.
Bring the microphone and do, and
Is this bizarre to anybody else? Sure.
take the microphone.
I don't know how he heard you.
All right.
Cantor, we need to talk.
No, I have really good hearing. It's Harold that can't hear.
Harold, she's blaming you.
I don't know why I can't hear. I don't know. Maybe he had, all
Want me
right.
to just come outside with you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Wow. Okay.
We can do it together, although I'm gonna like COVID you. Okay. Do I need to do the blessing?
Well, Cheryl's doing
Yeah,
the
I
blessing.
guess we do. Can they hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, so we're gonna do the blessing.
Cheryl, you're going to...
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar.
Take a breath.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Tekiah. Shvarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shivarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shivarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shivarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Take some air. Tekiah Gedolah. Woo!
Oh,
Are we done?
now I should point out, notice who's inside and notice who's outside. The other clergy's outside. Somehow I got the easy job. I don't know how that happened. But we're going to rise together as we put the Torah away. 606. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomchecha meushar derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu remain standing if you can for the great Aleinu. You know we go all the way down to the floor. I invite you to do that. If you're home or here, whatever you're comfortable with, you do not have to.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gedulai yotzer bereshit shenatan lanu Torat emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Are you going to blow the shofar again?
I'm up for it.
All right, 664. Are you going to start singing our Reshet out there, or are you going to pause as you return?
I'll pause.
All right.
Okay, give Harold a minute to get ready.
Rabbi
Okay?
Cheryl, 664.
You're going to wait for me to come back in to do our reshet. Okay? So.
All right,
hang tight.
664.
All right.
Shofar.
Let's try this again.
You remain standing if you can.
I don't know if that door is going to lock us out. They'll have to let us back in. All right. Here we go. Okay. Whew.
Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah.
Oh, that was good.
That was good.
Good job. We will pause slightly for
For
the rabbi and the cantor to re-enter the sanctuary
Whoa.
as we turn to 664. Did someone
Yeah,
just trip?
just about.
Everybody okay?
We're good. We almost got hit by the door, but we're good.
Okay.
All right, Harold, you ready?
664.
Areshet sefatenu yerav lefanecha el ram benisa meivinu mazin mabitu magshim kol tekiatenu utkaber berachamim uvratzon berachamim uvratzon Seder, Seder, Shofroteinu.
Can all be seated. Nicely done. Thank you, both of you. As we come to the end of our service, we are going to continue to send our condolences to the Copel family, Stacy, Sarah, and Adam, Stuart, Marlene, Bernie, entire family, Leah, Wayne, Greg, his family, the passing of Robert, to the Hack family, Trisha's sister Jody, Eileen Topper on the passing of Nick. We mark yard sites this week and next of Barbara Kessler, Joseph Berger, Isabel Steinberg, Rose Farron, Charlotte Walensky, Rosalind Katz, Doris Forster, Jerome Malay, Arthur Walder, H.H. Ensline, Carolyn Marks, Sidney Pollock, Sam Thompson, Morris Goldenberg, Stephen Goldstein, Mitchell Haas, Bertha Dwoskin, Gertrude Leeds, Lauren Perlstein, Morris Steckel, Billy Schulman, Bessie Schwartz, Irma Tescher, Elaine Kuttner, Rose Wachtel, Harold Kostrich, Regina Cates, Harriet Marks, Lou Schved, Max Goodhart, and Marvine Goldstein. As always, you can type names of folks you want to remember into the rooms. If you're here in the sanctuary and you're saying Kaddish with us, feel free to rise with us. Feel free to say names out loud as we say the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yitale ve'yitalal Shmei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela, le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom v'imromav, uya'asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru.
Amen.
Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. It's the song of the dreamer. From a dark place it grows, like a flower in the desert, the oasis of our souls. Come back, where we belong. You who hear our longing cries, our mouths, our lips are filled with song. You can see our tear-filled eyes. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy.
Just a reminder, while we still have a little bit of time, pay attention to your emails for our pop-up sukkah that will be appearing all over Broward, from the east to the west, to the north to the south. We'll be going around, and we welcome you to join us. We'll also have a sukkah here as well, so don't worry about that. But we're going to say Kiddush, we're going to say Motzi, and we're going to say the blessing over the apple, and we're going to send you off into this new year with the hopes that we'll see some of you Friday night online, and then back in here for Kol Nidre next week. Let's all rise together with the Jackowitz Kiddush cup here.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
L'chaim. I get to taste it out of the gold cup.
Yes, that's right. Tastes fancy, right?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz.
Shana Tova.
Lishana tova tikatenu. Lishana tova tikatenu. Tikatenu vetechatenu. Lishana tova tikatenu. Lishana tova tikatenu. Tikatenu vetechatenu.
Everybody,
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, especially to those online. We'll see you soon. Love to all of you. And of course, folks here in the sanctuary, Shana Tova.